Good morning, my students. In this video, we'll revise together the conditional, and beside the conditional, we are going to revise wish or if only and time clauses. Let's begin together. First, the conditional. There are two parts of a conditional sentence, the conditional and the result. The result depends on the condition. For example, in English, we have real conditionals, which talk about real possibilities, and unreal conditional, which talk about imaginary or impossible situation. Here are some examples of each type. Let's revise them. First, we have the real conditionals, which are the zero conditional and the first. They are real. So, when I say, for example, in the zero conditional, if someone breaks a window, an alarm goes off. I'm speaking about facts or habits. The first conditional, I'm speaking about real action, that possible action that can happen in the present or in the future. If I miss the bus tonight, I'll take a taxi instead. So it's a possible action. So the zero conditional and the first conditional are called real conditionals. What about the unreal conditionals? I'm speaking about imagination. Like the second conditional, if I say, if I owned a car, I would drive to work. I imagine that I own a car, so I don't have a car. The third conditional, if I had studied harder, I would have passed the test. So it's a regret. It's imaginary. I haven't studied already. And I have mixed conditional. If I had finished my homework yesterday, I wouldn't be so stressed out tonight. Sometimes I used a mixed conditional in some conditions. If the first part referred to past and the second part referred to present. The zero conditional, I say, if you don't water flowers, they die. So there is a condition, which is don't water, and the result, they die. If you have a headache, stop watching TV. The if clause, present simple, and the main clause, present simple or imperative. It is the zero conditional. With zero conditional, we express a general truth or give advice, or we speak about truth or facts or habits. I can use conditional with when instead of if. The word if implies that a situation happens less frequently, and the word when implies it happens more frequently. So I can use when instead of if. Like, for example, if I have a day off from work, I usually go to the work. To the park. So this is it's possible action I can do. It implied that having a day off from work is not frequent. It's not frequent, it's not regular. So it can happen from time to time. But if I say, when I go to my favorite restaurant, the waiters greet me by name. So it means that it always happens. It implied that I go to this restaurant frequently and always happen. In the first conditional, whereas the zero conditional talks about real present situation, the first conditional talks about real future possibilities. It's possible to happen in the present. Like, for example, when I say, if the weather is nice, we will go for a walk. If you don't apologize, she will never trust you again. So I'm speaking about possible action in the present or in the future. Don't apologize is the if clause, and the main clause is will plus infinitive, the future simple. I use unless, which means if not, is also possible with the first condition or second condition or third condition. For example, when I say, unless the weather is nice, we won't go for a walk, because unless means if not. If I'm going to use the second tense, if you don't apologize, she will never trust you again. I use you unless, so I'll say, unless you apologize, she will never trust you again. If I have the form of if negative, so I put unless without negative. The first conditional, as we said, speaking about real future possibilities. For example, whether it's sunny or rainy tomorrow, we will go to the beach or to the movies. So if it's sunny, we will go to the beach. I'm speaking about today, can be present, in the present. Or I speak about tomorrow, for example, future. If it rains, we won't go to the beach, we will go to the movies. We can also reverse the order of the condition and result in the sentence. We can put if in the middle. We'll go to the beach if it's sunny tomorrow. We will go to the movies if it rains tomorrow. So I can begin with if at the beginning of the sentence, or I can put it in the middle. Other words besides if. In first conditional sentence, it is possible to use other words instead of if or unless, like as long as or providing that, which means but only if. For example, when I say they will succeed but only if they try hard, or they will succeed as long as they try hard. I use also as soon as to emphasize immediacy. What the meaning of this situation is very urgent. It is very urgent, it's very important. I'll call you as soon as I have more information. So the time that I'll have more information, I'll call you immediately. When, as soon as, by the time, the moment that, and until, they are called time clauses, but they have the same structure as first conditional sentence. I can use them like the first conditional sentence instead of if. It's practice time. Let's practice together. We will choose the correct option for each verb. I'm going to take a shower as soon as I get home from the gym, or I will get home. What do you think? Yes, I get home. So I'm going to take a shower as soon as I get home from the gym. Unless my watch, to buy a new one. What do you think? Unless I find my watch, I'll have to buy a new one. It's exactly like if in the first conditional. I put after unless present simple and the other part will plus infinitive. If the surgery successful, he just 6 months to live. It's first conditional also. So if the surgery isn't successful, he'll have just 6 months to live. A great time if to Rio. So you'll have a great time if you go to Rio. Disappointed if nobody to our party on Friday. So we'll be disappointed if nobody comes to our party on Friday. If your wife's birthday next week, she upset. So if you forget your wife's birthday next week, she will be upset. Him the documents when him later today. So I'll give him the documents when I see him later today. When I married, a simple wedding. So when I get married, I'm going to have a simple wedding. So the real conditionals are sentences in which one thing depends on other. Use the zero condition for things happen regularly in daily life. If you freeze water, it turns to ice. Both verbs are in the present simple. I use the word if implied the situation happen less frequently, and when implies more frequently. Use the first conditional for things that are real possible. It can happen in the present. So if it's sunny tomorrow, then we'll go to the beach. Although both events are technically in the future, we use the present simple and will or going to in the result. You can use when instead of if the condition will definitely happen in the future. You are sure of it, it will happen. So we use when. We use as soon as to emphasize that the result will immediately follow the condition. So it means that there is no space between the condition and the result. We use unless in place of if not. And we use as long as or providing that to emphasize the condition. It means but only if. Providing that you do your homework, you will succeed. Unreal condition, they are used to talk about imaginary, unlike or impossible situation in the present or in the past. This is, I'm speaking about the second conditional. If I owned a car, I would drive to work. So I imagine things that are different in the present. I don't have a car. The third conditional, if I had studied harder, I would have passed last week's test. So imagine things were different in the past. It's not in the present. Okay, what about imagining the present were different? For example, one simple way to imagine that things in the present were different is to use wish plus past simple. For example, when I say, I live near the beach, but I wish I lived near the mountain. So it's just a wish. Okay? What about my boyfriend's so busy that he has no time for me? I wish he didn't work so much. So I just wish. After wish, I use the past simple, not present. In the second condition also, we can take those wishes one step further and imagine the result. For example, when I say, if I lived near the mountain, I would go hiking every weekend. I'm just imagining. If my boyfriend didn't work so much, we'd go out more often. I just imagine. So I used I wish plus past simple or second conditional. One final note on the second condition. Which is correct? If I was rich, I'd buy a boat, or if I were rich, I'd buy a boat. Yes, if Dana was here right now, she'd agree. If Dana were here right now, she would agree. What do you think? Technically, the correct answer is were in both cases. Even though the subject is singular, we use were when we're talking about the hypothetical situation. However, informally, more and more people are saying sentences like this with was when the subject is singular. It's not correct, but it is common. To be on the safe side, it's best to stick with were. So we have to use were, we don't use was in the second conditional. One very common phrases for giving advice is in the second condition, if I were you. So I'm giving advice by saying, if I were you, I would study hard, for example. The second condition, for example, Jack wants to buy a house, but he can't do this because he doesn't have any money. So he will imagine that he had money. If I had a lot of money, I would buy a big house. I wish I had a lot of money to buy a house. So if I use wish, I'll put past simple also. If I say the sentence in the second conditional, I'll say, if I had a lot of money, I would buy a big house. If I turned with wish, I wish I had a lot of money to buy a big house or a house. Susan wants to phone Paul, but she can't do this because she doesn't know his number. If I knew his number, I would phone him. I wish, so I'll say, I wish I knew his number to phone him. It's practice time. We'll complete the sentence with the verbs in the correct tenses. Pay attention to which part of the sentence is the condition and which part is the result. If you a healthy breakfast, you have more energy. What do you think? So, if you ate a healthy breakfast, it's imaginary, you would have more energy. The next one, I call him if I have his number. So, I'd call him if I had his number. If he more organized, he not forget so many things. If he were more organized, he wouldn't forget so many things. How long it take if we hire someone to do this work? So how long would it take if we hired someone to do this work? The first and second conditional. If John runs fast, he will win the race. This is still possible to happen. What about this one? If John ran fast, he would win the race. This is unlikely to happen because John doesn't run fast. So I imagine that John ran fast. The difference, first and second conditional, both conditional refers to the present and future, but the difference is about probability, not time. The first conditional, I speak about real and possible situation. The second conditional, I speak about unlikely to happen, impossible to happen. What about the third conditional? Imagine that the past has been different. Let's imagine a different past using wish, for example. When I say wish plus past perfect, I put it in the past. So I use it to imagine that past was different. Like, for example, I was late for work today. I wish I had woken up 15 minutes earlier. So when I use wish to refer to past, I use the past perfect. Wish plus past perfect. But if I use wish to refer to present, so I put wish plus past simple. I wish I hadn't eaten that seafood yesterday. It made me sick. So I'm speaking about past. I want to change the past. This is used to express regret only, such as for eating that seafood, or past situation you wanted to be different, such as wishing you had woken up earlier. If you pay attention to this, so when I use I wish plus past perfect, it's the same like when I use the third conditional, because both are used to refer to or to express regret. The third conditional, now we'll take those wishes one step further. If I had woken up 15 minutes earlier, I would have arrived on time, so it's a regret. If I hadn't eaten that seafood yesterday, I wouldn't have got sick. So that's also regret. In the first part, the if clause, I put the subject plus past perfect. The past perfect consists of had plus past participle. And the main clause is going to be would or could or might plus have plus past participle. Other examples, if we had brought our camera, we might have taken a picture. So I'm speaking about regret. We didn't bring our camera and we didn't take pictures. Sarah could have learned French if she had taken lessons. So it's regret also. The third condition refers to the past and it is not based on facts. It expresses an impossible situation. Let's look at this one. Jack wanted to buy a house last year, but he couldn't do that because he didn't have any money. So if I had past participle, past perfect, had plus past participle, a lot of money, I would have bought a big house. What about this one? If I use it about the past, it's regret. Yesterday, Susan wanted to phone Paul, but she couldn't do that because she didn't know his number. So if I had known his number, I would have phoned him. Okay, I'm not rich, so I don't travel a lot. I want to use if I. What do you think? How can I make it? I'll say if I were rich, I would travel a lot because I imagine that I'm rich, so I use the second one. She didn't wake up early, so she missed the train. What do you think? Yes, great. If she had woken up earlier, she wouldn't have missed the train. So I'm speaking about regret in the past. I didn't call you because I came back really late. So how can I rephrase it? I'll say I would have called you if I had come back earlier. So it's also a regret. He doesn't have a job. That's why he can't buy a house. So I'll imagine that he had a job. So if he had a job, he would be able to buy a house. He had that terrible accident because he wasn't careful. Pay attention to this. If you have the sentence in the past, so I used automatically the third conditional. I can't use the second or the first because the second and the first refers to the present or the future. Here I'm speaking about past. So I have to say, if he had been careful, he wouldn't have had that terrible accident because it's the third conditional. I didn't work hard, so I didn't pass the exam. So it's also regret. I have it in the past, so I put it in the third. If I had worked hard, I would have passed the exam. They can't live in this country because they can't find a job here. I have it present, so I can't use the third. It's present. I'll use the first or the second. So I'll use the first if it's possible action, and I use the second if I'm speaking about imaginary. They can't live in this country because they can't find a job here. So how can I do it? I imagine that they have a job. They would live in this country if they found a job here. So I imagine. That's why I used the second. Visiting Israel wouldn't be possible without a visa. So unless you have a visa, you won't be able to visit Israel, or it will be impossible to visit Israel. Okay, that's a summary for all the conditional. I'm speaking about general time reference. It's zero condition. If it rains, the grass gets wet. It's fact. I'm speaking about if it rains today, you will get wet. This is the first conditional. So this is still possible to happen. I'm speaking about a possible action in the present or in the future. Then, if it rained, you would get wet, but the sky is blue. This is unlikely to happen. So I just imagine. That's why I used the second. And the third one, I use it for regret. If it had rained yesterday, you would have got wet. It didn't rain, so you didn't get wet. It's past situation. What about wish and if only? Both wish and if only can be used with the past simple to talk about the present events, like I wish, or if only I had a better job, or I wish I was taller, or if only I was taller. I use it also for the past perfect to talk about the past and expresses regret about them. In the past, it's not present. For example, oh, I wasn't expecting you. I wish you had called before coming over. So I'm speaking about regret in the past. You have to do this. If only she hadn't told the police, everything would have been all right. Could and would also plus infinitive. We are not happy about the situation. I wish I could afford it. So I'm not happy about this. I wish I could afford it. Or if only it would stop raining. Everybody wishes you would go home. Why don't you go home? That's the situation. If the subject is I or we use could is often used. Like I wish our sales would improve. But if I wish we could go together. So if I say here our sales, I use would, and if I use we, I use could. It's better to use could with the we or I. Thank you, my students. I hope you enjoyed our lesson today.